delay it a little bit. There's like, no, we don't want to show this. See an excellent connection. We should be good, theoretically.
Awesome.
Perhaps. Waiting on YouTube. Still waiting. Oh, so let's keep on waiting. There we go. Yep, all right, 15 seconds. Yep, we're still going. Yep, come on. I believe in you, YouTube. I think. Maybe.
Sometimes.
This part's not even me, Matt. I didn't even do anything here. This has nothing to do with me. I'm doing the best I can with what I got to work with.
Oh, I believe in it.
Oh, there we go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's do some chaotic good. Intro, so fancy. Oh, I have 2 pens. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Chaotic Good Sports, and we have one heck of a show for you today. Before we get started, we got to shout out the charity that we are raising money for. Matt has picked it himself, and that is Convoy of Hope. Convoy of Hope is an awesome charity. They have a 100% rating on Charity Navigator, the highest rating that you could possibly have. They're busy assisting folks who were just hit by recent hurricanes. They're also preparing for Hurricane Milton. People in Florida, stay safe. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is a Super Bowl champion, former high school baseball pitcher, and current long snapper on the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matt Orzech.
Pleasure to be here.
Appreciate you, brother.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to jump into that first because we got to talk about this and how we even got acquainted. So, we got the receipts here. We got this. It doesn't happen often, but every now and then, I'll get a DM. And it just so happened that on September 10th of 2022, I received a DM from this man right here that said, despite you being a Packers fan, I felt the need to say I love the content, genuinely honest and funny takes on things. And I said I appreciated it. And Matt, here we are. And you're a member of the Green Bay Packers.
Heck yeah, on the good guys now.
That's it, baby. I mean, it's been a crazy journey. It's so awesome I got to talk to you. Got to see you during a preseason. You know, that was always a great time. And first of all, let's just get this out of the way. How you doing? How's the season treating you so far?
I'm doing really well. Been good, you know. Watching the guys battle through some crazy games so far, some adversity early in the season, which is always good, and team staying tight, so it's been a lot of fun. It's been a good year so far.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I want to jump into this because your story into the NFL is definitely not a traditional one, as some would say. We did some homework here. So you're born in San Diego, California, right? California guy. You're a pitcher at Paloma Valley High School, right? Baseball was kind of like that major passion. That was something that you played Little League, everything like that. What kind of drew you to baseball to start off, like, you know, your athletic career?
As far as I can remember, being a little kid, I loved throwing stuff and throwing it hard and throwing it far. So baseball just kind of made sense for my parents. Yeah. Try to funnel it in somewhere productive.
So literally just, I want to throw things and I want to throw them hard. And parents are like, okay, well, let's not do this with any valuables. Let's put you in Little League and see how that goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you're at high school, right, you're there as a pitcher. You're also playing football. You're a tight end, right? Things are going pretty well. And then you have a concussion your junior year, right? Mm-hmm. At that point, you know, when you've been going through sports, you're kind of doing this dual thing of baseball and football. Did that experience kind of rock you in a way that made you like second guess what you were going to do in sports? Obviously, you're in football now, and we'll get to that. But more of like, was that like a first experience of, oh man, like I have to play a certain way or I have to like look out for this?
A little bit. It was more so just, you know, I didn't really put professional sports as my total aspiration in life.
Yeah.
Being in the MLB was kind of a cool thing, but it was like I was almost too ashamed to even hold it as a dream.
Sure.
So I was more concerned with, you know, school and having a healthy brain after that concussion. So that was kind of my primary concern after that.
I'd say so. Priorities when we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Right. But it seemed like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the dream was, hey, if there was going to be any sport that we were going to pursue, it's going to be baseball. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, you go to Azusa Pacific, a D2 school, right? We're rocking and rolling. We're there. We're going to pitch. It's going to be awesome. You're also messing around with some football as a tight end. And then one day your coach comes over to you. They're having some depth problems. And they go, hey, Matt, you ever think about long snapping? This makes, I have to say, just doing the research for this interview, the way that, because I watched a bunch of interviews that you did, and then there were reporters, they talked to your dad before the Super Bowl with the Rams. I love how that has been a staple in like every single interview that you've done. And you've told that story where the coach just come up to you and is just like, so if you tried long snapping, you're like, I'm a pitcher. And you're like, hey, it's basically the same thing. You're just upside down and you're doing it behind you. At that moment, right, when you start getting into that process and you try long snapping, you said that you had kind of like a natural talent for it, right? After that first day where you tried long snapping for the first time, was it ever in your mind of like, okay, maybe this could be a path?
Not really, but it's funny. Our head coach is probably my third day snapping because he told me just forget about tight end right now. All we care about is having depth at snapper. So just work on this, hang out with the kickers, go off to the side, have some fun. But it was like day 3 of snapping, I think, and I was snapping field goals before practice, and he came up and he was like, "Hey, just want you to remember me when you're getting paid to do this." And I was like, "What do you even mean by that?" So that was kind of the first time it was even introduced to me that people get paid to long snap, because football, again, was kind of peripheral for me. It's just something that I enjoyed doing. So yeah, it was kind of threw me for a loop 3 days in.
Yeah, I'd imagine. So, I mean, at that point, has he called back and is like, hey, listen, remember what I told you when you were there? It's just like, well, now it's time to pay the piper.
Yeah, every now and then he'll remind me.
That's fantastic. You tell this story that the first game where you're long snapping, your first one, right? It's on a punting assignment, and you snap that ball, and it goes flying over the punter's head.
Oh, yeah.
Right, just sailed it. And the response that your coach had was that we run to the sideline, he high-fives you, he's like, hey, great job, you got it out of your system. What did that kind of do for you as a young man, as a collegiate athlete, to kind of have that response and that kind of coaching style? And how has that like carried on as you continue to be a collegiate athlete?
It kind of stupefied me at first. I was prepared for, the college speech you always expect a coach to give you after you screw something up that bad.
Yeah.
But it really just kind of framed it up for me. That it was like, football, there's going to be some crazy stuff that happens.
Sure.
You never want the bad ones to happen. But what matters is the response and what you do with your opportunities that you're given from there on out. And it definitely helped me to learn that you don't live and die in perfection, or even as close as you can get to it. So it really helped me kind of going forward, especially in a position like long snapping where it's so measurable. If this is a perfect snap, you can do that. Versus the rest of football is a little bit more gray and subjective. So it kind of helped give me a good framework to work with as I went forward.
Is that kind of like coaching style that, I don't want to say leniency, but it's more of just like, hey, it's not going to be perfect. You could just strive to be as good as you possibly can. Is that what you say, like your preferred coaching style? And did you experience that kind of coaching in the NFL, or is that more just college?
I've definitely experienced it at all levels. There's, position coaches that are very focused on just helping you to be the best you can be, coordinators. But my head coach, Victor Santa Cruz, he was really big into understanding the personalities of his team makeup and each guy and how they respond to different types of coaching. So he was very proactive in understanding and learning each guy. So he kind of knew who I was already at that point, how I responded to things going bad. So he kind of knew the right words to say to push me in the right direction.
Nice. I mean, it's always nice too, because then there's that kind of personal element when it comes to coaching of like, hey, I'm talking to you as a human being. I'm not just screaming at you as one of my players who did something that I didn't like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always kind of a positive when you have that kind of, guiding figure, I would say. And when it comes to your focus, even though long snapping was there, it was like, okay, we're still going to pursue the tight end element. We're going to potentially, was baseball still like in the picture at this time?
Yeah, baseball is still in through my freshman year. And then actually at the end of my freshman year at college, I decided to go full on in football because baseball was just going to be too much to keep up with year round and football balancing. And the love kind of switched.
That's wild because I mean, just to talk about where you start, you're playing Little League, right, in California, and then to go to college and you're like, okay, like, it's going to be as a pitcher, like, I'm going to throw things, what have you. And it's just, you just happen to have a conversation with a coach as you're trying to be a tight end. And it's like, hey, what about long snapping? And now this is starting to become more of a focus in terms of just like a sport shift. That's a pretty significant change from where you started.
It's definitely one I never saw coming. And the second spring after my first one, never playing baseball in over a decade, was a little strange. I'd walk by the field every day like, man, yeah, I did. I'm walking to spring football practice and having a lot of fun. But it was definitely an adjustment.
And I have to ask some technical questions because I'm also fascinated by this because you refer to your position of a long snapper of you want to be invisible, right? In
Yes.
which if nobody talks about you after the game, it's a good thing because that means that everything went well, right? The snaps were good, the punts went off, the kicks went through. We're having a nice day. I got a clip here from 2019 when you got a combine going on.
All right.
Oh yeah, we're rocking out here.
We're going deep.
Oh, we're doing some deep cuts because I don't think I've ever really dived into the technique and just how detailed it is to be a long snapper. So I'm going to show this quick clip. It's only 10 seconds just to show the form. One Matthew Orzech. Hold on one second. Here we go.
Here we go, number 70, Matthew Orzech.
Look at the stance.
Azusa Pacific University.
We're a little bit more refined now.
Snap
too.
number 1.
Barely knew what I was doing there.
All right,
Look
good
at
location,
that.
quarter turn.
Yeah, you got a couple points. Not full 3 points. Not perfect legs.
Snap number 2. All right, good location, perfect leg.
So, can you break down the technique of, and this is just still in college, of you learning the position? What goes into being a long snapper at the collegiate level?
Well, for me, it was a little weird because it was still kind of
New?
on the fly. Yeah, it was on the fly. Like there's nobody on any college staff that is a long snapping coach. You're just kind of like, hey, just throw it between your legs. We're trying to get perfect laces here. And I was like, cool, I don't know how to do that. So you just kind of get lucky, hope for the best. And then on punts, you block because we ran a pro style, so I had to block. But the coaching point was, hey, get up faster. And it's like, great. That's like telling a pitcher, throw strikes, So a lot of it was just kind of trial and error, teaching myself. And then I think it was my junior year, our special teams coordinator found a guy in California, Matt Wigley, who is a full-time long snapping coach. And he kind of broke down some technical stuff, just trying to, because I was playing tight end as well. So it's kind of minimal stuff that could at least refine and make it a little bit more consistent. So, having the same grip every time, getting kind of a stance, and just little things to kind of eliminate big inconsistencies between each snap.
And I have to imagine it is just a ton of repetition, just over and over and over and over again. Just like, so it becomes just very normalized of, yep, I'm upside down throwing this ball as hard as I can. And also it has to spin the exact same way so we get perfect laces every single time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I'm talking to former players and et cetera, they talk about like the special teams unit and they talk about kickers a lot, right? So like everyone's out there at training camp and all that stuff. And kickers like, I'm just going to kick the ball, right? I'm just going to do that. When it comes to training and practice, is it just something that you can do on your own? Do you have to be like with the team, or is it something that you could just stand there and just chuck the ball, go get it, and just keep on doing it over and over again while you're in college?
Yeah, so in college you have the advantage of there's more than one of you in every spot. So you kind of have backup punter, backup kicker. You can be like, hey, let me throw a few at you real quick. So in college, every pre-practice I'd get with the full-time long snapper, throw a few before, and then just run out there for punt period after playing tight end and just hope for the best. But in the NFL, like off seasons, I'm pretty much hanging out alone, and I just draw a little square on a brick wall and throw it at the wall, record it, and watch it, refine on my own.
I mean, at least you could just practice. It's super easy, right? You're just like, all right, just square on the wall and have a nice day.
Yeah.
Because at this point, when you're in college, you're still pursuing to try and be tight end, right? Like that's still in full focus. And then NFL scouts start to call, and they start to take some interest. And you're like, huh? And they're like, yeah, let's talk about this long snapping. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're not here. Okay, so you're here for that. What did that do for you? Because I think it was in your senior year, right? That you really kind of had that mindset shift where it's like, okay, we're in the football world, right? You made that decision after your freshman year. Yep, we're going from baseball to football. But now it's a transition from, okay, there were kind of, one foot in both lanes. Now we're going full steam ahead with long snapping. What did that do for you, and what was like that mental process like to kind of just dedicate yourself to the one part of the craft within the sport?
Yeah. The decision in itself to wholeheartedly pursue the NFL was kind of crazy to me because I'm at a Division II school. I came from a small high school, so it was never on my radar. I was never the, top recruited guy. I barely made it into college getting recruited because of injury, whatever, size, speed, all those intangible stuff. So it was kind of weird for me to be even vocal about it, like telling people, hey, I'm going to try to go to the NFL. I'm going to try to do this thing from a small school.
Yep.
Sure, we don't have very much program success in the history of getting guys to the NFL, but we've got these guys that have connections. They say they have talent, and we're going to go for it. So it was really difficult mentally to wrap my own head around it.
Sure.
But there'd been enough kind of progressive leaps to give me enough security to do it.
And I mean, my dude, like you kind of went through it when it came to college. You spoke about in an interview how football kind of got taken away from you twice, right? You were a physics major, which, Matt, let's just be really honest. Why are you even doing that to yourself? Why would you even go down that road? Physics? I mean, it's number, but math is hard, my friend. It is very, very hard.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is humbling. After 3 years of it, I got beat. I got beat up by it.
Physics won. It definitely won that match.
It definitely won that battle.
So at one point, right, that's not going well, right? Football gets taken away from you. Second time, you suffer an injury and football gets taken away from you. And when you had this decision to go, hey, full on, I'm going to try to make it in the NFL, that has to be kind of just like an identity issue because you're like, okay, if I'm going full force towards the NFL, all of my, goals are that, and that's taken away. What kind of mindset were you in going through that? And what did you have to rely on to be like, okay, now I need to make sure that I have something that's off the field when I can't be on it?
Yeah. So throughout all those kind of steps of having football taken away, I'm a big faith-driven guy, and relying on so much more than the titles that you're given in life because all those things
Sure.
can be taken away. So at the end of the day, I also was like, if all that stuff can be taken from me, what is it that I can really end up doing forever? And that's being an upright, standing person who treats people well, who works as hard as they can at whatever is in front of them, whatever they've been given to do. And so that football opportunity being presented to me and kind of laid out before me, I was like, all right, I'm going to pursue this with everything I've got because I have the natural talents for it, and I have to give it a full shot to see what's going to happen. And if it doesn't work out and things don't go my way, I'm a lot better for it because I've worked as hard as I could at something.
And I mean, just kudos to you, man. I mean, to have that mindset too, like coming out of college, like that's usually in my experience, that's something that a lot of people, in general, or especially when it comes to athletes, that they're working their entire lives towards, NFL, baseball, whatever it is, what their chosen craft is. And if that gets taken away from them, and it could just be, they retire or, they suffer an injury and can't play anymore. There is kind of that internal battle of like, okay, like now what? If I'm associated with this my entire life and everything I've been doing is to get to this point, and now that's taken away from me for whatever reason, who am I? right? To have that idea and like that mindset and personal identity coming out of college, I mean, that's pretty damn good, my friend, like to have that at such an early age, because it usually takes folks a long time to get there.
Well, I was in college for 6 years, so I had a long time in
Just got
college.
a little bit extra time. Just a little bit extra time.
Yeah.
When it comes to the draft, right? So it seems like you had some optimism that you're like, you know what? Even if I don't get drafted, there's a good chance that I'm going to get a phone call from somewhere, right? Because it is a skill. There are only so many long snappers that are going to be able to be in the NFL. And your first stint is with the Baltimore Ravens. What is that feeling like when you get that call and are like, hey, this is an NFL team that says, yep, we want to bring you in? Was there a feeling of just like, oh man, I did it? And it coupled with oh God, like now I really got to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, equal parts terror and excitement and kind of, just the shared thrill with my family and my coaches and trainers have been helping me. So it was kind of a big family event of excitement and then terror of like, oh man, I don't even know what it looks like to do this professionally. So there was a lot of nerves getting on that flight because you board your flight 24 hours essentially to go do it.
Yeah. Because it's just you're being flown out to practice, and it's just like, hey, let's see what happens. And because that's in April of 2019, right?
Yeah.
So in April of 2019, you also got married, right? You get married around that time as well. Well, we did our homework, my friend. So what is, because that has to be also, you are going through monumental moments in your life of getting married to your high school sweetheart, Destiny, and also getting a call from the NFL team. How are you balancing that? Just like as a young man, as both like professionally and personally, your life is just starting to take some very, insane turns.
Yeah. I think definitely the relationship with my wife has a lot of credit to that because she didn't even question it for a second. She was like, all right, well, what does it look like to be given this a full shot?
Let's go.
And we kind of broke down our plan of, all right, if we don't make it through the first camp, we at least are going to give it another year of seeing what kind of workouts turn up, and I'll work. She was working. So it was definitely a big team effort in getting ready for that. And it was a little weird at the wedding. We got all these relatives coming up and they're like, so football, huh? That's what you're going to do? You sure that's realistic? So we had to get through a lot of that early on.
Oh, I imagine, right? Because it's just like, all right, but what's the backup plan? You're like, it's the NFL, like, here we go. But to have that support from your partner to be like, hey, no, go and pursue that. That has to be such like an amazing feeling to have that support, to have that backing, because now you're going through this unknown process of being a long snapper in the NFL and you're not doing it alone.
Yeah. And it was crazy. There was we're about to spend the first, who knows how long of our marriage apart because I'm in a hotel in Baltimore. She's at home with my mom working. So we got married and then I was gone. For the first 3 months at least.
Yeah, that's challenging, I would say, to say the very least. And you wind up getting picked up by the Jaguars, right? You spend a rookie season there. What was that experience like to actually be signed by a team, to go through like that entire year? And what did you learn about like the NFL as a whole? Because just like entering it for the first time, it has to be a whirlwind experience because there's just so much unknown.
Yeah, I mean, there was just so much information, things happening where you're learning about how the NFLPA works, how the team works, all that stuff. And then on top of that, you're getting onboarded as the season's happening because I got signed Sunday after roster cuts and all the waiver wire stuff. I got to Jacksonville as a hurricane was hitting, oddly enough. So I was in a hotel until Friday where we weren't doing anything as a team. And my first day in there was Friday for walkthroughs and stuff like that. So it was pretty much just pure chaos and a lot of stuff going on where I was just trying to figure it out as it happened.
I do have to ask, so the first time that you're snapping on an NFL team, right? Was there a hot second where you're like, I remember the first time I did this and it sailed over. Like, where are the nerves? Because there has to be an extreme amount of compartmentalization in there of being like, hey, I'm feeling all this. Like, yeah, of course it's going to be nerve wracking. But then there's also the practice and the repetition, and you've been doing it for years. What kind of outweighed one or the other when you're stepping on that field for the first time? Was there a sense of calm of like, I've been doing this now for a good amount of time? Or are the nerves kind of still there, you know, and until you actually do it, then they'll subside maybe a little bit?
Yeah, there's definitely some nerves, but a lot more faith and trust in what I'd been doing because that first snap, I was only 8 days in to my long snapping career. Had no idea anything, so there's nothing to really lean up on. There was no preparation behind the scenes that I'd built kind of this huge foundation on. So first NFL game, it was kind of this, it was almost more just excitement and a thrill of it.
Yeah.
And then it also helped that right before running out there for that first punt, both my right and left guard looked at me and they're like, "Hey, bro, we got you. Like, just worry about that snap. We're going to protect you. Like, you're going to be all right." So there was, and I'd only known those guys for all of 2 days.
Yeah.
So that was awesome.
You're like, "You're my brothers."
Settled me. And yeah, I was like, "I will fight and die for you guys forever." So that kind of helped just settle me in. Like, all right, we're going to be fine. This is going to be okay.
Because I would assume, I don't want to say the word easier because I don't want to belittle that. I'm saying like there has to be a sense of ease though as the season goes along because you're not doing it just a couple days after you've been signed, right? So as the season goes along in Jacksonville, where's your confidence level just like with your technique, you know, with your position and what you're able to do? And does that kind of give you that confidence of you're like, yeah, like I belong in the NFL? Because I have to imagine, Matt, and correct me if I'm wrong, there has to be like at least a little imposter syndrome of like, oh my God, like I'm in the NFL, like snapping these balls. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, imposter syndrome is kind of constantly happening of where it's like, am I really good enough at this? I can always be better, and you're comparing yourself to as good as you think you should be. So that's kind of constantly happening every single day because
I feel you.
every day there's practice reps. Yeah, you're getting punt rushed every single day in practice. You're getting cooked by somebody, and it's like, man, am I good enough to keep doing this?
Yeah.
So there's constant battles for that, and just because the margin for error in the NFL is microscopic. Yeah. So every single day is kind of its own new challenge, and you can either get excited by it or get crushed by it.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, you're talking about doing perfect laces drills, right? And basically in the NFL, it's always got to be perfect laces, or there's going to be somebody else who's going to step in and potentially take that job. You go through this season in Jacksonville. You eventually make your way to the Titans as well. And then eventually you get claimed by the Rams, right? Where you beat out another long snapper who would eventually be signed by the Green Bay Packers later that year, because that's just how this world works.
It does.
To be back in California, where you were born, right? Now, California is really big, so not the exact area, but where you were born, in California, back in your home state, we could say, was there a feeling of, oh man, like there's another level of this that's making it a little bit more special because you're back around where you were, you know, where you grew up when you were playing Little League, all that great stuff. And now you're playing for the Rams, like on an NFL team, long snapping. Like, was there a bit of pride that was there?
Oh, absolutely. And there's an added layer of kind of special to it because there's so many family members, friends that grown up around that are close by and are able to go to games and you're able to share it with so many different people. So there's definitely that level of special out the jump.
I think at the same time, when you're going through this, right, it also provides a little bit of stability for the family because at this point, when you are in Baltimore, in Jacksonville, in Tennessee, what's going on with like the family? Are you just constantly moving? Is it just you on your own that's going out to all these things? Like, what does that look like? Just again, talking to players who are either, you know, on the fringes of the roster and just like have to pick up and go, you know, that could be very, very stressful for like home life and family life. Are you alone during these times, like when you're in Jacksonville, or did, you know, your wife come out, the family come out and support you and at least provide that level of support while you're going through this?
Yeah, so once I got claimed to Jacksonville from Baltimore, my wife moved out. We got an apartment together. We ended up getting a dog midway through season, which was, you know, the dream, right?
Of course it is. Let's
Married
go.
with a dog. Yeah. So that was all awesome, unbelievable. My mom would always come out. My dad came out. People helped us move out there. Just constant people visiting, and that guest room got its use. Uh, but then once we got cut, at that point, my wife was actually 12 weeks pregnant with our first son. So I got cut. I got flown to Green Bay for a workout during
There-
COVID. And then while I was here getting COVID tested, I got a call in Miami, wanted to sign me to practice squad. So then I fly to Miami and then trying to find a place for my wife to move, live. She's got to pack up the house or the apartment. My dad flew out to help. And then while we're in Miami, we get claimed to Tennessee mid-season. So then we got to do it all over again. I leave. She's third trimester pregnant in Miami. My dad comes down again to help move, pack all things up. So it is chaotic to say the least when all that stuff goes on.
No stress at all, man. It sounds like it's a walk in the
Oh,
park.
no.
You're just going from state to state. You leave from Jacksonville to go to Green Bay, then you go back to Miami, and you're like, all right, well, I was just here before. Okay, so a little bit of stress. A little bit of stress.
Yeah.
That's why. Okay, so when you go to California, is there a level of like stability where you're like, okay, I have family out here, right? So like now we have this support system. So however long I'm here, at least we're gonna, be surrounded by the tribe at least.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome because there's people within driving distance for the first time. It's no longer, hey, what day can you come pick me up from the airport? They're just, hey, I'm out of town for the game. Cousin's driving up to hang out with my wife and the kid. So it was definitely a different level of support and
Yeah.
kind of fun that we got to have.
I love it. You mentioned the chemistry because special teams is usually a pretty tight-knit group, right? You have the punter, you have the kicker, you have the long snapper. And you've talked about the chemistry that has to be built between those three people. With the experiences that you went through heading into LA, that you had on a team, in college and all that stuff, what kind of, because there has to be a human element there, right? Of just like getting to know people and talking to people and just feeling comfortable and that level of trust that's there. How did your previous experiences that you had in the NFL and also in college prepare you for that? And also, what was the human element of that like when you're trying to vibe with a kicker and a punter who are trusting you to get the ball to them?
Yeah, it definitely started in college. My kicker, he was all-American kicker. I think he ended up being our school's all-time leading scorer. And then he went on to be my best man at my wedding. So,
Let's go.
initial experiences was, all right, my kicker is going to be my best friend, at least one of these guys, right? Uh, and then in Baltimore right away, I was with the Wolf Pack of Morgan Cox, Sam Cook, and Justin Tucker, who'd been together for, I think it was 9 years at that point.
Yeah.
So they did everything together. They brought me along, and seeing the value of that, of how they pushed each other, how they, they get after each other a little bit too when things weren't going as
Sure.
well as they thought it should. There's a reason those guys are as elite as they were and as they are today. So seeing the value in that right away, and then going to Jacksonville and trying to find, kind of my own thing as my first time with Logan Cook and Josh Lambeau, was a lot of fun, and getting to know those guys and see how new people work, and then bouncing around team to team, seeing each different dynamic and how it worked. And you're kind of slowly building your idea of how you want it to look.
Mm.
And then when I was in LA, I was with Johnny Hecker and Matt Gay, and
Yep.
I found what I wanted it to look like really quick with those guys.
It seemed just because I saw even like the Rams were producing content, with you guys. They were asking like favorite foods and all that great stuff. It seemed the rapport that you all had was pretty special. So was that almost instantaneous? Like when you go into LA and you're like, oh, these are my people.
Oh yeah, it happened really quick. I mean, it's hard not to have a good time when you're around Johnny Hecker. He's obviously got a heck of a reputation for being just a good time and an elite performer on top of it.
Yeah.
And I would say he really was pivotal in opening my eyes to like, man, football is supposed to be fun. It's not just a job.
yeah.
Like you're supposed to be having the time of your life. It's a kid's game. But that's not to say you're not focused and
Sure.
at an extremely high level and really wanting to perform well, because no one wants to perform more than Johnny. So he kind of really opened my eyes to that aspect of like, man, you're supposed to have fun. So we were playing games from the jump, and just being a part of that was awesome.
And that has to impact your performance on the field too, right? Because there's the professional aspect of, hey, I have to do my job and I have to do it well and it's detail oriented, right? We got to make sure it's perfect nearly every single time. But then there's also like those personal relationships that you build with these people of like, oh, like I don't want to let Johnny down, right? Like I don't want to let Matt down. How does like that element play a factor into like, let's just say a game day? Or is it like, hey, I'm just going in there with these expectations and pressure to be like, I need to perform for these guys because like these are my boys.
Yeah, there's definitely bits of both where you really want to perform your best for obviously professional reasons.
Sure.
And then when you know those guys, you know their families, you want to make their job as easy as possible. And I'll be the first one to blame any missed kick on my snap because it's like, all right, was it perfect? No, all right, it's my fault. And so I'll kind of shoulder it all the time. But those personal relationships are everything, especially you go out there, you've had a rough week, maybe personal life, maybe there's been some crazy stuff going on the field where you just don't got it on a day or a pregame even. And those guys are able to look at you like, man, I got you. Like, you're good. You're going to be fine. And give you that second level of confidence is everything. We do it for each other.
Yep.
And it changes your day.
Well, it's because, again, right, I think it's very easy. You're talking about, like, shouldering some of the blame, you know, if a kick doesn't go through or whatever. And it's a lot easier when you get to share that burden, you know, with someone in that responsibility. Because playing at the level that you are, in which there's less than 2,000 NFL players, right, like, on the planet, and you are one of them. And it's like, all right, like, I got to go out and I got to perform and I got to make sure it's at this level. And to be able to experience that and share that with somebody. And to be very honest with you, not a lot of people have that experience, right? There has to be even more bonding that comes from that because it's like, oh, you understand what I'm going through, where someone else might just not get it because they haven't been in your shoes before.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when it's talking about those negative performances, those bad days, there's not really anybody outside of that three or, you know, the rest of the kickers around the league and those guys that understand what that feels like, what it's going to be to go through it and come out of it on the other side.
And for you, like when it comes down, because we're going to get to the Super Bowl, don't you worry. I know. We're going to get there, which I want to talk about kind of just the technique element of it, because now you've been in the league for a few years. By the time you get into LA, you're building this rapport. And what kind of techniques are you picking up? And there was a great question that was asked there. Is it like, can you recognize like the sound of a kick to go like, oh, that one's a good one, right? Or
yeah, I know.
Like where are those little nuances there?
Yeah, so there's all kinds of little things. I mean, from my technique standpoint, working with Morgan Cox in Baltimore was essential to my success because he'd been doing it at an extremely high level for 10 plus years. So teaching me blocking footwork, especially ways to control laces when, you know, it's more humid, the ball's rotating faster, all these little things. He just blew my mind with all the little details that can come with it and helping me to understand it. And even throughout the season, I would send him a clip of something happening on a punt rush, be like, hey, what do I do here? And he would help me out. So that's huge. But then you get kind of familiar with your punter's op times and how fast the ball gets off. So you have a mental clock while you're blocking of like, all right, 1, 2, it's off, and you're running. Same with field goals. The sound, obviously, you know when a ball's been thumped, especially by each individual kicker, it sounds different. So you're able to notice talent differently too now. Like when I go work out with college kids, you'll be snapping and one kid will hit one. It's like, oh, that was different.
Yeah.
This kid's got it. And you know immediately, and it's kind of this weird intuitive thing just from being around it so much. Yeah.
There's so much repetition, so much experience. But then again, like you said, like there's those nuances with the guys that you're playing with of like, okay, like how do you want this snap? You know, how do you want the ball to deliver to you? And by the way, Matt, because as we are talking, we are raising money for Convoy of Hope, and we have hit over $1,000 already raised.
Man, that is awesome.
In just about 40 minutes. That's not chaotic good there. Let's go.
You guys rock. You guys rock.
We're rocking out here. All right, so I'm not going to dwell on the Super Bowl a ton because you've given like very level-headed answers to this because you played at home, right? Which you kind of wake up in your own bed, you go through the usual routine and everything like that. So the day of, it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's special, but it's also another game because I get to play at home, which is a pretty big advantage, I would say. Looking at it now, where you are in your career and looking back on it, do you feel any differently about that day? Because it's like, oh, damn, not only did I play in a Super Bowl, but I was the first Azusa Pacific alum to play in a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. Was there, like, do you think about it now, years later, of like, wow, like maybe I just have a perspective that I didn't have back then when it was kind of like, yep, this is routine, just going through. And now after winning and years back on it, damn, that was pretty special.
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely this feeling of, man, that was awesome. But I think even while I was in it as a long snapper, there's kind of this baseline humility that comes to your job of,
yeah,
teams don't go out to get a snapper because they're like, this guy's going to lead us to the Super Bowl. It's not, not that.
Hey, Matt, I'm telling you, look, that Super Bowl doesn't get won without you, my friend. You're just like going out. That's it. You
have a part. You have a part in it. But so there's a very big humbling piece of, I was the right fit on the right team at the right time, and I got to basically just be along for the ride and not screw it up for us. So there's just so much special, surreal feelings and memories about it. Even my wife, every now and then, will be like, "We won a Super Bowl. Like, you're a Super Bowl champion. This is kind of crazy."
I got a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, and then last week, being in SoFi, playing against the Rams for the first time in my career in SoFi was pretty cool. Every now and then, I'd look up and see the banner, and I was like, I was there for that. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty. Yeah, you were. I was gonna get. You were named a team captain for that too. Like, was that experience like extra special too? Because kind of coach was like, here you go, like team captain, get to go out there. Going back to your old team.
Yeah, anytime you're a team captain is always an honor because it's, again, I'm always from the perspective of I'm just the long snapper, Yeah. So being recognized like that is always unique and special.
That humility that you have, Matt, would you attribute it more to like yourself personally and the mindset that you had, like we talked about getting out of college, or do you think a lot of that comes with the position? Because I sense that from you. Like there is a lot of humility, which is like, I'm just a cog in the machine, right? Of just like, we're just trying to get there. I'll hype you up because, my man, you're a Super Bowl champion. There are not many people on this planet that can say that. This is a safe space to hype you up for. You could get all the accolades and achievements here.
I appreciate it.
Like, do you think that comes with the position, or is it more just like your personality of just being like, yeah, just like I'm part of the team?
I think it's definitely personality traits. And again, from kind of the lifetime of being never the stud of a team, I've always been just kind of a role player type position. I guess, sure, I made all-star teams as a kid in Little League, but I was never like the dude on those teams. So yeah, I think it's just been built up over time, life experiences, things getting taken away, not going my way.
Yeah.
All kinds of things like that.
Does a Super Bowl win change your mindset at all? Like when it comes to how you approach your job, like professionally, like does it give you like an additional bit of confidence when you're doing it? Or is it like every day I got to earn it again?
Both. Again, both. There's every day you got to earn it. Yes, absolutely. Every day you got to earn it again. And then it also helps to kind of give you a perspective of been there, done that. So, like if you go on a 2-game losing streak, it's not the end of the world. Like, don't let the bumps define the whole road.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to be down there because that's 2021 Super Bowl season. We didn't win in November.
That's the Rams are that like we're talking about, because it's a very week to week league, right? It's just like, oh man, you lost a game. It's the end of the world. You guys didn't win a game in a month, and it's not like September. It's November. Yeah, I got a bye in that month, but you didn't win a game, and it's like you said, still able to win the Super Bowl at the end of it.
Yeah, so it definitely gives you a level of perspective and kind of levelness to the season of handling the ebbs and flows of we're still in it, guys. Like as long as we don't lose ourselves, we don't lose the composure, the confidence, the preparation, we're going to be all right. So it definitely helps that.
So how does that translate now? Because you come into Green Bay, you sign a 3-year deal, which well earned, creating some generational wealth for your family, which is an incredible accomplishment. What was it like to have that stability right off the gate? Like, right, and saying, hey, I'm going to be here. Like, I'm getting paid. And now you're walking in as Super Bowl champ, not saying you're walking around the locker rooms in Lambeau Field. Just be like, hey, guys, Super Bowl champ coming through, MBD. And showing you bringing the ring and just showing it off every day. Like, how does that impact the way that you go day to day to being like, yep, I'm here. I've earned this position. I have accolades. I have the resume now. I belong in the NFL. Like, does that hit every now and then, like in terms of confidence when approaching like a game or a new place in Green Bay?
I would say it's more of just leaning on past experience when you're talking with younger players that need help kind of settling in or understanding all those little things about the league and how certain stuff works. I mean, there's just so much stuff that you can try to help with that you don't even know until you've been through so much of it. So I'd say with that stuff, it comes up more often than not. And we're the Packers, we're the youngest team in the NFL, so there's a lot of younger guys than me that I can offer that up to. And as a long snapper, I've got more time than most of the guys have, so more approachable for that stuff.
I mean, it also, I want to talk about some of those transitions there, because you even talk about Justin Tucker, right? Like if you're starting off with Justin Tucker, and now like you're coming in and just talking about the Packers specifically for a moment, you talk about like this offseason, there was a kicking competition that was going on, right? And eventually Narveson signs. He kind of goes through his ups and downs as well. Had a great game this past week, obviously because of the great snapping that was going on, being back in the hometown. Of course, you got to do it.
Right, yeah.
But does that experience that you have, do you find that that's part of your role as well for a guy like Narveson, who hadn't kicked an NFL field goal until literally this season with the Packers? Do you find to build that chemistry to being like, hey, I'm going to be that guy you can lean on. I've been there before. I've gone through this. We're going to be okay. Just like it happened in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I definitely try my best to be kind of a steady performer on the field first, and then steady off the field as well in the locker room, to be kind of that sounding board for them to be like, hey, what was Tucker like on a day-to-day basis? What was Matt Gay like on a day-to-day basis? And to kind of help guys with that experience, because at the end of the day, they're people wearing those jerseys, and I want them to be the best they can, especially when they're good dudes. So it's really easy to work for a lot of guys, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And going to Green Bay, this is a personal and a professional one. I'll ask you the professional one first.
Okay.
So you talk about like going from humidity. I mean, man, you played in Florida, right? You played in Florida, going in Cali, you're in an open air stadium. SoFi is just insane. To now going to Lambeau, very, very different elements. What do you do, like as a professional, to then tweak your performance when it comes to snapping? And now you're doing it, in December in Green Bay, which is very different from December in Los Angeles.
Yes. The first tweak comes mentally. You kind of have to brainwash yourself into saying, I love this. I love that it's cold.
Football's supposed to be fun, they said.
Exactly. So you kind of have to psych yourself into it first. But Lambeau and our practice fields especially are some of the hardest places to be a specialist in the country, because that wind out there is no joke, and it can be really cold, and it can do all kinds of crazy stuff to the football.
Yeah.
So it's humbling, and you kind of have to learn how to work through that stuff, snapping into the wind versus with the wind, helping the punter talk through what he's going to do in versus against or with a crosswind.
Sure.
And then what you're going to do, because sometimes the wind isn't blowing when you thought it was. So if I'm aiming in a spot, I got to let him know what I'm thinking. So playing in Lambeau definitely comes with its own stuff that you kind of get to own as your
you got to adjust to it a little bit. And like there can be an advantage there, right? Just playing there and having that experience. I'm now imagining you, but like before every snap, just going, okay, got it. Coriolis effect. We got to make sure that it's going there. But again, that just comes with experience. And then the personal question is that when you were a kid for about 5 years, you lived in Wisconsin.
I did. Yeah.
You did. You lived in Wisconsin. It was Heartland, right?
Yes, sir.
There you go. So what was that like to come back to? I know you were like super, I think it was like 5 to 9 or something like that. It was pretty early. What was that experience like? Because there's family there, right? Everything like that. Now they get to wear the green and gold once again. Was there a little bit of like uniqueness and it was special to come back to Wisconsin? You won a Super Bowl, in your home state, and now coming to Green Bay where you already have at least some familiarity, within the state. What was that like for you?
Yeah. Again, it's kind of special because my first memories being from 5 to 9 of football and caring or noticing football was in my best friend's house watching Packer games because inflammatory statement coming. The Orzechs are traditionally a Bears family. So we were the Packer smackers of our little neighborhood. So we would go to these parties and root against them. I know. I was a little kid. I didn't know any better.
We all make
but
mistakes.
My first memories, we all do. We can be forgiven.
Forgiveness is important.
Yeah. But what's funny is that I don't really remember the Bears stuff as much. I just remember how fun it was watching them be Packer fans. They were painting their faces green, the cheeseheads, the whole thing. So that was a blast. And then getting to come back, those are the first people I thought of. It was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I get to be a Packer. I get to be a part of that fan base. So that was awesome. And then my family, they all wear the green jerseys now. They're all wearing cheeseheads at games. They're all about it. They were broken in.
Well, I have to ask this. So when you're at your wedding, right, and people are asking, so football? Those same people that was wearing their jerseys now, Matt, and just going, yay, football. Like, is there a little bit of like, yeah, I think the football thing kind of worked out?
There is definitely. And my wife, she's a little bit fiery. So there's some people when they ask, hey, can we come to a game? She ignores that message for a good day or two first. I'm like, babe, it's okay. They can come. They're just trying to be,
They just gotta know. They just gotta know.
Yeah. They're trying to be good family members. They should press me on that. I sound delirious saying I'm going to play in the NFL. So they should have pressed me.
No, but it's because your wife was like, no, I'm a ride or die. And you're just like, no, everybody's got feeling. And if you were a ride or die, you get a same day response. If not, you got to sweat it out for a day or two. I think that's a good policy, Matt. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good balance for us to have.
It's phenomenal. And talking about the Packers specifically, you mentioned that we're the youngest team in the league, right? And for you, and heading into this season, was there a bit of excitement that was like heading in because of the way things went last year, to make the playoffs, to go and beat the Cowboys, fantastic. And now sitting here on the precipice of like, hey, this could be a really special season. We got some real talent here. Is there that excitement for you that it's like, hey, all right, I've been to the promised land. I want to help win a Super Bowl. Now I want to, I have that drive to be part of another Super Bowl winning team.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely that feeling. The whole team knows we're a special roster. We know we've got the players to do it. And so that feeling is definitely back of like, we've got the special sauce here, guys. We can do this. And the we could use a green ring. That'd be pretty cool.
I think so. I think so. You could go around Chicago with it. It'll be real nice. It's fine. But I do want to ask, kind of somewhat last question here. When it comes to where you are now, has there been room for reflection kind of just on the crazy journey that you've had? And like, is there moments where you're able to stop and be like, whoa, that was crazy. You mentioned your wife talking about like, remember when you won a Super Bowl? Like that was pretty crazy a couple years back. Is there a lot of room for that? Or is it kind of just, hey, like earn it every day still, we're putting our head down, working through it because we got to make sure that we maintain this level of professionalism and technique and all that great stuff. I'm just kind of curious of where you are on the reflection standpoint.
Yeah, I would say most of the time I'm pretty much in just work, be it better, perform, all that stuff. But every now and then, it's usually when we have people in town that we get to come and take on, the tour of the stadium, show them around. They get to go to their first NFL game ever. And that stuff always kind of opens me back up to like, this is crazy. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And people who might not even be football fans that are all of a sudden like, this is cool. Like,
yeah.
And they've become football fans because they got kind of a glimpse into the world. So that stuff always kind of opens me back up to some reflection and appreciation of just, this is insane. This is the craziest thing ever.
Yeah. I mean, my dude, you got a question asked from your coach being like, you ever try long snapping before? And now you're a Super Bowl champion long snapper.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd.
That's pretty good. Now, and I have one more thing here.
Okay.
So, I found your high school recruiting page.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. We did a little bit. I want to read something, and I'm just curious on your thoughts years later now. This was your personal statement, my friend.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know if I remember this.
You're just like someone else, right? Chat GPT before it even existed.
Right.
I'm a highly coachable and adaptable athlete. If given any opportunity or challenge, I always excel. I'm a hard worker, humble, respectful, and a team player. I have a very high desire to play in college, and I'm confident that I can play at the D1 level. I play hard and earn respect on and off the field. Thank you.
That's pretty funny. I kind of actually hearing it, I remember where I was. I was sitting at my mom's kitchen table writing that out, trying to think of anything. So that's pretty crazy. Didn't even mention the NFL.
No, this was like the site was, I'm going to go, potentially be a tight end. I'm going to go potentially be a pitcher, right?
Yeah.
And now you're a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. If I could tell that kid, his mind would explode.
Well, Matt, I appreciate the heck out of you for taking time to come on the show to tell your story. I wish you nothing but continued success. We did have a question that now I'm just morbidly curious about.
Okay.
They want to know how you found the channel. The fan base wants to know how we made this whole thing about you, but now I just seem like a narcissist to be like, well, what about me, Matt? What about me? Yeah, you won a Super Bowl, but I made some videos, so.
I'm trying to remember which video it was that popped up. I think it was one of yours where you're responding to how all the teams respond to a certain event happening in the year. I think it was one of those.
Sounds about right.
And yeah, and I just remember laughing and going down a little rabbit hole. My wife appreciated them. She thought it was funny. And so I was a fan ever since. So I was stoked last year when I saw you take up the fan of the year mantle.
I appreciate you, man. Yeah,
that was awesome.
Because it's insane to me, right? Because it was so fun. I remember you DMing me, and I was like, "Oh crap! Like, this is an NFL player." Like it was like watch the content. Like it's happened every now and then, but it doesn't happen very often. I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." And then I will never forget because it was in March, and I'm sitting there. And I see, because it's a very common theme for the Packers, like when we have a need that they're going to go bring somebody in, like a long snapper or something like that, and everyone's waiting on for some news. And they signed you, and I was like, I know that name. I was like, I have seen that name before. And I was like, and I went into my DMs. I had to scroll back, and I remember in all caps, I was like, welcome to Green Bay. And now you're here, Matt. And I cannot thank you enough, because this has been so much fun.
Yeah, it's been a blast. I appreciate coming on here, kind of full circle. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's talk about full circle. I mean, literally, you replace someone in LA who winds up going to the Packers. Now you're on the Packers. You got called out for the Packers for a tryout, and now we have raised $1,250 already in the hour that we have been talking. So I appreciate the heck out of you, Matt, for taking your time, for all the work that you do, and for playing for literally my favorite football team, and I just appreciate the hell out of you.
Well, I appreciate you right back and all the stuff you do. The stuff you do for the community and charities is amazing, and you've already seen some fruits from that one getting rewarded, so that's awesome.
As you said, right, it's not about us, right? It's about the team. That's it. That's
Correct.
all it's about. It's about helping other people.
Team guys.
That's right. Oh, we're both going to eat that humble pie. That's it. We're just going to, we will have a humble off, my friend. Who could be more humble? Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, Matt, where can people find you if you want people to find you?
I have no idea.
All right, that's
I'm on
enough.
Instagram, Matthew Orzech, I think 46, which is my rookie year number. Haven't changed it for some reason. And I should be on Lambeau Field for home games every Sunday, hopefully.
Let's go.
For the foreseeable future.
Let's go. Hey, listen, my question is, when do you get into the Hall of Fame? Azusa Pacific, come on, first alum to play in the Super Bowl and to win a Super Bowl. When are we getting that call?
Well, we'll see, considering they canned their football program, so.
I'll make some calls. And they'll be like, who are you? And I'll be like, I don't know. And then I'll just hang up. It will work out. But
yeah, who are you calling about?
You're just like,
hey,
that
guy.
He's a Super Bowl champion. But folks, this fundraiser will stay open until next Monday. So if you're tuning in late after this is already aired, please feel free to donate. They do amazing work. They have already shipped out over 2 million pounds of supplies to those impacted by previous hurricanes. They are actively preparing for Milton. Everybody in Florida, please, please stay safe. And folks, thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.